What's up, boys and girls, and everything in between? It's your boy, Chad Jimmy here. So, everyone in the Battlefield community will know that recently DICE cancelled 5v5, the mode they were going to do for competitive play. As far as I'm aware, they had every asset pretty much done, or near to completion, in the game. They are also ready to release 2 new maps, Provence and Lofton Islands, which were both going to be designed for the 5v5 mode. Those are going to, I don't know why I said those are going to be released very soon in the game in general. But they're not going to be in any way linked to the 5v5 mode since that's been cancelled. So I thought, do you know what, Jim? For many months I've tried to be that person who moans about it, amongst, teammates, friends, whatever, but doesn't actually make a video complaining about it, because there's so much noise and so many complaints already about, DICE, they do wrong, that I didn't want to add to that space. But today is the day where we end that trend and we say, actually, no, fuck you, DICE. We're a very small part of the community, the competitive side of it. Constantly feel like we have to acknowledge that and say, we basically are, useless, apparently, according to the majority of the player base and or DICE, who say, you're basically nothing. You're not relevant, you should just shut the fuck up, stop demanding, and, don't even demand one thing. Don't even get one thing since the start of the game, which is the general sort of gist of what, happens when you talk about competitive stuff. So I decided to just talk about everything that is relevant and is wrong with the competitive side of BF5, and I think I'm going to start that right about now with no further ado. Just to let you know, like I said, I don't really want to just make this about it. It's going to be like 95% everything wrong with BF5 comp, and then we're going to talk about a very small amount of positives here that I'm trying to draw from this. But I just want to start with something which I think everyone will know who plays, but I'm not sure who are people who don't. I don't think they're going to know about this, but it's very easy for me to complain about DICE, because it's like that. I think there's a channel called Griffin Gaming where he basically, I don't really like him that much, because he basically does that thing where you start an argument that you're going to win, because it's so easy to win it. Like, you have to be actively bad at arguing or debating to actually lose that point. So you'll pick on like a small minority of people that says really stupid things, and you'll just go in on them like 100%, and you'll basically say that person represents this wider group that makes a wider issue, and you win the argument. That's really not what I'm interested in. It's I could easily sit here and say, oh well, the game's pants because that one developer at the start of the year said we're all uneducated about females, and that's still triggering me to this day. That's not. I moved on from that about a week after he said it. It's a stupid thing to say. He's he left the company. I don't give a fuck. At this point, I think there's so many contributing factors that I don't want to just say, DICE cancelling this is the be-all and end-all of the issue. I want to try and give like a general overview of what has gone wrong and everything that's gone wrong. And I'm not going to be exclusive here. I'm going to be naming leagues, players, teams, and everything wrong with the game itself specifically, just so it's really obvious that, we try and get a big, wide range of issues here. Although, having said that, they're not equally weighted. The main issue still remains to be the developer behind the game, and or the supporting developer, aka EA, who cares so much about money and so little about the live service stuff which we were sold at the start of the game. It's going to be different from BF1. No premium pass thing. We're all going to get the same content. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. We're going to get regular updates. There's going to be no bugs. Blah blah. All that shit. That's obviously gone by the wayside. I just want to start off with the leagues now. And again, to play competitive play, there's a series of leagues that exist, all of them with their own little rule sets, and I think that's a good place to start in terms of specifically about competitive play. One of the issues is with rule sets. I mean, there's so I don't even know where to start here. There's so many. I've got a Word document here which basically lays out everything I wanted to say. I'm just reading it now. There's so many things that are so wrong with rule sets, which to me, if I was running my own league, imagine that, Jesus Christ. But if I was, I would just do, because it's so commonsensical. I think I said this. I think I mentioned it in the last one. If you've got any sort of other knowledge that isn't specifically about BF5, then you can just apply any common sense, or you could just there's nothing wrong with copying the right thing in life. If you see a role model, you copy them. If you see a good rule set, you should copy it. If you see a good competitive system, you should probably copy it. Things like, does everyone remember how integral class restriction was for BF1 competitive, when it was actually genuinely quite popular for a while, when the big sort of finishing sort of like mid-year, mid game cycle? That was really important for balance, because everyone knew the medic class was crazy. Had probably the best skill ceiling gun with the also 8.25 extended. The no animation revive, the self healing, the range, the revolvers it had on the secondary class. It was pretty nuts. everyone knew that, in T5, for example, there was a max of 3 medics. For some reason, that's been lost in translation. I don't know why that's not a thing on BF5. I thought since the start, that's pretty obvious, there's going to be certain guns which are going to be overpowered in each class. Most people say, I'm kind of on a low-key mission to try and get the M1907 banned by playing with it, because it's fucking nuts. I am shredding, guys, and I don't want to just sit here and fucking suck my own dick about it, but, like, literally, the gameplay shit you can get on that gun where it's just like, you're dead. People are just like you just run into me or anyone who can use the gun well, like Wire on my team as well. Damn, son, you're going to get melted. But my point is, there's crazy guns in each class, like the Thompson Rapid Fire, for example, in the medic class, where even the medic class should probably be limited at about 4. I would say like 4 of each. 4 of one class max is a good place to start. And if you want to variate from that, that's fine. But that's a good place to sort of get a middle ground, so you can't just smoke the entire Rotterdam map off, from C-spawn. Whatever. I think I'm just confused why that was lost in translation. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit, because I think you guys probably know what I'm talking about when I say rule sets. Roster stuff. Oh man, I don't want to talk about VT game too much in the BCL final, but Jesus Christ. The fact that you can join a roster an hour before you start playing a final. Who thought of that idea? Or who didn't think of that idea? Like, Jesus Christ. I think in the future BCL agreed that during the knockout stages rosters should be locked, but it's disappointing that something has to go wrong for another team for that to be implemented. It's just like the biggest fault of humankind is the fact we have to make a mistake at least 10 times before we go actually need to start compensating for this. Moving on swiftly on NA servers. Why? So the general argument is there's so many teams playing in Europe and there's so little teams playing in North America that the North American teams need to join the EU competitions for it to be relevant for the American teams. There's no point 300 or I think it was Defy earlier in the year, destroying everyone or having one serious competitor and the whole league just being boring because who's going to win. Well, whilst in Europe it's actually quite even. 2Easy's going to win one, GV's going to win one, Venom's going to win one, whatever. Therefore, they should play in the EU competitive scene. That's absolutely fine. What isn't fine is the fact we have to play on NA servers. Who thought of that? So you've got one team out of 20 plus teams playing in an ESP tournament, and you've got everyone who has to play that team has to play on NA servers. Who thought of that? That is so stupid. If you want to join the EU league, then play on EU. That's pretty common sense to me. Yeah, I don't know why that's the thing. And then obviously, this is a difficult one because I'm sort of talking about the Lewis gun, which is something I feel like I'm well qualified to talk about. It's a gun which I think it should be allowed if the bipod wasn't on it, and as soon as you put the bipod on it, then you're dead. If I see you with a bipod on it, you're dead. Like, there's just no way you can avoid that. Even at close range now, like I think that's the difference between someone like me who's played with it since the start of the game and has gotten used to it and stuff and can start using it at close range. It becomes pretty crazy because you can't kill me at long range and you start to struggle to win gunfights with a submachine gun at close range against the Lewis gun. If you hit your shots and you get headshot multiplier, all that kind of stuff. That sort of thing is difficult because I wish you could take the bipod off and then allow it. But since you can't do that, I think the Lewis gun is the sort of gun where you say it's not actually crazy overpowered unless it's in someone who's actually really good with its hands. Because it's available to everyone, but everyone likes to chat shit about how OP it is. If it's that OP, how about you play it yourself? The reason you don't play with it is because you're going to have to go up against people like me, people like Kukai, who are actually really good with that gun. And the situation then becomes, okay, we need to essentially ban the gun just because the quality of the game is going to actually increase if you do that. In terms of, I'm going to have to start using the Bren, even though that's basically the same gun, it's just slightly less powerful. Maybe that's something that we'd actually want to see. Maybe you want a slightly less powerful version of the Lewis gun. Then, maybe you want to see the FG being used more. It's probably a pretty not obvious gun to ban, but it's an obvious gun to be considered to ban. And the fact that no league out of there's probably about 10 serious like actually active or were active leagues. I'm talking about obviously the big ones. I'm talking about like ESB, BCL, BMF, and then you've got ones like BPL. I think that's going to change his name now. I'm not sure what to. MLB and SNP, CBL. Like, there's so many different leagues, and not a single one of them has ever banned a Lewis gun, even just to see what would happen. What would be the response? But the response for me would be I would start playing Assault like all the time, and that would shorten the engagement range. And I think for a lot of people that would actually increase the quality of the matches. Also, the things like the boys. I know it's funny, and I've again used it in BMF matches, not to piss off my opponents, even though I say that, but actually to try and get it banned because I think it's just ridiculous that it's allowed. I don't know why it's allowed. I think the argument is, you can purchase it, everyone can use it, but the everyone can use it argument is, you could apply that to MMGs and shotguns, but we don't say that for them because obviously they're bullshit. I think the boys is kind of bullshit as well. It's like it's one of the things where it's like, do you want to see it? because it's funny, or do you want to see it because you're a player and you think that's a good, viable gun to show imbalance of skill, and the person with more skill comes out as the victor? You don't see that with shotguns. You don't see that with MMGs. You don't see that with the boys. They're all pretty similar in that way, that a bad player can outskill a good player by using the gun that they've got. And if they didn't have that gun, then they wouldn't outskill them. Do you see what I mean with what guns you should not consider banning? Metas as well, they don't adapt with the balancing. They never have. Guns are being balanced, guns are being rebalanced. I think Oscar was making this point in BF1 where the Hellriegel and the Automatico were basically the exact same rate of fire, but the Automatico was banned by default, and Hellriegel was like, the godchild of people like me who just abused it basically, because it was just nuts, 60 bullets, high fire rate, pretty decent range for an SMG. Like, that doesn't the rule set doesn't adapt with the gameplay. So essentially, when I say the meta, I mean like the start game meta, aka like the SDG, is still for some reason used all the time. I say for some reason, it's used because everyone's got the Cronus fucking script for it, when actually there's other guns that are better. And I think people don't realise that there are guns like the 1907 in the assault class which are actually viable at all ranges if you start getting that. So it's that sort of thing where players don't adapt, but also more importantly, that's you can't do anything about that, but the leagues should adapt to sort of compensate with the balancing. Which guns get worse, which guns get good, unban some ones which aren't actually as bad as they used to be, like the Throw Me, I think, is sort of gun where you say, why is that banned when the 7 isn't banned, where the rate of fire is actually way higher on that one, and you get assault class perks. It's kind of weird. It's like, how do you justify that one and not do this one? And I think my point is, the conversation shouldn't end with, oh, we voted on this 6 months ago, that's it. People should be able to re-challenge it and say, well, this is, you guys realize this is one thing and this has changed, and we should be able to basically re-establish why we ban or don't ban so. And you sort of get to the point where I think the whole point of the meta is that you start to get to like the second best gun in class. So most people wanted people to use the Thompson instead of Throw Me because it's the second best gun at close range. Or, second best with 50 rounds, not the rapid fire, then it's the best one. Most people want the second best, support gun in there. Like, people want, the Bren gun or the FG in there rather than the Lewis gun. And most people want, the Sturmgewehr instead of the 1907 or whatever, or the SDG. And people want to get to this, like, second best sort of, like, mediocre weapon range, it seems. But we don't actually tend to get that when we actually look at what's banned and what's not. You tend to see the best gun in class being allowed, Lewis gun, rapid fire Thompson is still allowed on most leagues. You sort of don't really understand why, that's the sort of consensus when you actually ask people what they want. They want good players to, okay guns, and then when, good players use them, they make them look crazy. When actually, if you use, like, if you use the Thompson on pubs, like, you'll be doing good, but, like, most of the time you'll be getting beamed on bigger maps because you just haven't got the range. Things like that, where it's like, okay, so your expectation doesn't really match your all set base, and you've kind of got to ask leagues, like, what's your ideology here? Like, what do you want to allow? What do you don't want to allow? And how are you actually going to sort of, decide on this? Is it just the team leaders, or is it actually just the admins of the league? It's kind of always, murky and unclear. I think I've completely drilled home the rule sets point. Also, I'm going to add this because someone in Tribe made a good point about this. The recon class has basically been banned out of existence, where, the flares are actually kind of... I actually thought, the first time he said this, I thought it was complete bollocks, and I thought he was chatting some shit. And then I thought about it and thought, actually, yeah, I shoot flares out the sky of pubs all the time, and... easily, 47 bullets of a Lewis gun, I can ping that in a couple shots basically, and it's out the sky and your flare gun's wasted. Like, that's a pretty easy, like, perk and then counter. So why is that not allowed? Because you can counter it so easily that you might actually make the scout class relevant again. I think the answer is most people don't like one-hit kills, and people who are very good with scouts, the scout class, tend to be, sort of vilified, and people don't like them. People like, I remember when Nevid was at the peak of his powers, I guess, during earlier in the year on our team, he was really annoying teams. Not because he was putting up like 20 kills a game, but because he was putting up like, 12 kills a game, all of them headshots, all of them on the same lane against the same players who couldn't take him out, and he was just beaming them. Like, that kind of thing is like someone using the class to its fullest extent, always getting headshots, always being accurate, using the right scout gun for the job. That kind of thing was, knowing the positions he has to be, knowing when to peek, when to not. That kind of like skill of being a scout player is kind of lost in BF5, and it's kind of a three class meta, and it was, and there's actually 4, but you wouldn't know that because we never play scout, and it's kind of it's very niche, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons the boys is allowed, because people want to justify having the scout class. But my point is, it'd be nice to actually see all classes in the game. I think my general ideology for competitive is you need to take away the bullshit stuff, but actually you need to also make it recognizable to casual players who actually sees, I use the Lee Enfield in pubs. I can use it in competitive, but wait, why is no one using it? Well, it's because everything else on the class is useless. Spawn beacon's not allowed. To be fair, shouldn't be allowed. The spotting thing basically useless. The decoy thing basically useless. Flare gun banned. You might as well use a different gun because something else like the Lewis gun is just going to beam you at long range a single shot. The sniper thing, that kind of thing. To be fair, that kind of goes into gameplay as well with the general for snipers. The fact that, it's a 2-shot body shot compared to in BF1 where you had to be in a sweet spot. That kind of thing doesn't help it at all. But I think it'd be nice if we could make the recon class a bit more relevant in certain situations on certain maps, especially big ones like maybe a RAS or something. Selective banning I've already talked about. Oh yeah, talking about this isn't really a competitive league, I guess, because it's not really its own little thing, because BFN's been inactive for a while. But the fact that BFN has been inactive has been really strange for me, because, okay, so at the start of the year, most people said, competitive's dead, we have to wait for RSP, everyone's going to be playing pubs. Competitive play actually, remarkably, hasn't died and has carried on in a pretty lively way if you're actually within the community, where you've got a lot of different leagues starting during a time where we've got no competitive. It's pretty remarkable how passionate, I know I'm passionate about this, and how passionate other people clearly are to actually do this kind of stuff, to actually organise for the point of just pure competitive want, not for money, not for fame, not because it's easy, because it's definitely not fucking easy, but because to organise or play, but because they actually want to do this, and that's something that's been remarkable. What hasn't been remarkable is BFN being completely, utterly inactive for this whole period, the entire period. When did BF5 release? November 2018. It's now late August 2019, almost early September. Almost been a year, and nothing. Basically nothing. All I've heard is bad things about admins abusing their power, and there being a bit of a scandal around that. Apart from that, it's basically just been a community hub for toxicity and chatting shit because you're bored, because nothing else is happening. The purpose of the website they made, it looks really nice. I was like, oh, this is cool. But then you've become completely inactive. So it's like, why would you create a website and then do nothing? I understand their response would probably be, we're waiting for private games. We're waiting for the 5v5 mode to become active. But it doesn't work like that. When other things are going on around it, it looks really strange when the main competitive Discord or community, BFN, is completely redundant, and you've got other leagues like ESB, BCL, BMF becoming the hubs of competitive, actual active play, instead of just people sitting in the general chat chatting shit about their favourite or least favourite teams. It's just strange. It's like, if you're going to become inactive, then please actually become inactive instead of just sitting there and just causing shit. Because I swear it only exists for toxicity in chats. I swear there's basically nothing there that's actually useful. I think for me, the only thing that's useful there is the video share. I think there was an attempted national thing with Wire and Hisoka, but that fell through. It's just been inactive. It's just been useless. I think that's all I have to say about BFN. At this point. The general lack of support and promotion. I think we saw this mostly as a team in BCL, where we had an issue in the final against VT, and for the final of their league, there was not enough support or not enough people. People was streaming instead of actually caring about their own final they organised. Imagine going through an entire group process, signing up all the teams, registering all the teams, doing standings, doing all this kind of shit. You go through the group stages, you have your best teams playing, you go through the quarterfinals, you go through the semi-finals, you get to the final, and then you're just streaming. Like, what? Like, focus on your own league, man. If you're going to do it properly. It's basically the thing. And it was really confusing because I said over and over again on my stream, just to make it absolutely clear, up until that point, BCL were fucking amazing. To me, they were very helpful, very nice, very communicative. And then as soon as you get to the final and you've got an issue, everyone's sucking their own dick, watching porn or something. Like, what is going on? That was very strange. But in general, that's not just exclusive to BCL. There's a lot of times where I think BMF are doing a great job now, where they're basically streaming every single game, or they're trying to, at least. That it's pretty. They actually seem to give a shit about the games that are going on within their league. But in general, I think this was the case during ESB, where they would stream like the crazy high-profile matches, and then basically everything else was just to them like. If the admins of ESB didn't think that it was, the two best teams in the world playing, if it wasn't 1UP versus GV, it wasn't a Venom versus Too Easy, it was, not worthy of streaming. That kind of ideology doesn't grow anything. It's one of those things where you watch a ESB stream, you're like, oh, that's cool. When's the next one? Oh, it's in 6 months. Oh, okay. Why even bother streaming this one then? It's just a strange one where they're like the semi-active competitive league where the best teams play in it, when actually it doesn't seem to get the same amount of cachet from the actual people running the league. They don't seem to care as much as the players do playing in the league. It's very strange. And then there's the variety of the leagues as well. So there's, like I said, I've reamed some off like BPL, MLB, SMP, CBL. There's so much variation and there's very little difference between them all. I guess that there's like the same leadership within all these. I can't remember who said this. It was in a chat somewhere. I think it was on BCL where someone said like there's so much like crossover between these leagues where like the same leaders are in the same ones, but they're like the same thing, but they're actually a separate thing. Or like they might change their entire league just because of like a Suomi or Piat ban. And that's like the difference between an entire league. Like it's the exact same, but we ban the Suomi. Like really? Is that enough to have a different league? Surely you should like merge together and form like a good one with like enough support to make it viable for both leagues. So, help each other out. A bit of cooperation, bit of teamwork, guys. Maybe. Is that asking too much? Or are we so like in route with, I need to have ultimate power within my league that I can ban whatever gun that I don't like? I haven't actually wrote this down, but there's sometimes where you kind of confuse where the admins of a league are playing, and then there's obviously a conflict of interest there where like a team would beat them, or like a gun would annoy them, and they would try and instantly like ban that team or player or gun, and it would be very strange. It would be very like, is this normal, or should we just not have admins playing in the league and having the power to change the league itself during play or whatever? Do you see what I mean? Like the conflict of interest there is a bit questionable. I think the improvement to that would be you can play in them, but just don't, set it in stone from the start unless there's a major issue that you have to address. Try and keep the rules consistent for that period of play. I think, again, BMF have done that quite well where, DICE have added Marita with absolutely no fucking announcement at all. No warning, which now makes, again, the map count even, which means that the spawn rotations are fucked again. Nice one, Dice. 2 more maps are going to come, so that means 10. So that means, again, it's going to be even, not odd, where most people want it odd, so you can flip it without having to swap sides. Good job, Dice. But I think the good response they had, which is, as much as I would want to play Marita, because I think it's quite a fun infantry-based map for assault and medic players, and it's quite, fun and fast, I also think it's a good choice not to play it, because it's an addition to something which has already continued to start and interfere once it's already started. So I think that's fair. Last but not least, for the leagues point, leagues category, it's completely like grassroots. So the viewership is so like niche, especially for the smaller ones, where like I would know about it and like team leaders would know about it, but basically everyone else is like, who the fuck are like CBL, right? Like no one knows, and that's not meant to be like mean to them. It's the point of like, you need to do a better job at promoting yourself and becoming a bigger part of the community, like, or you're just going to get this viewer point of, you're just a side league which is going to be running for like 5 weeks and then it's going to stop because everyone pulls out or something. That happened to MLB, for example, where it's just like all this prep, all this work, and then it doesn't happen because of some map confusion or something. It's like, oh man. My improvement recommendation then would be, you need to try and do something. Anything you can do to try and get some promotion from other leagues or other players who could promote your leagues. Just get in someone's DMs and say, you're a pretty big player. Can you start, working with us or, promoting us in some way, and saying to other teammate leaders, you should start playing in this league. We can have our little thing here. We can have some input on the rule set, all this kind of stuff. You miss the actual the advantage of being like a grassroots where it's pretty. It's not run by big cheeses basically in the community, where you can actually adapt things and be this league that's adaptive, be this league which is new and tries things out, experimental sort of league. But you don't see that. It's like a completely separate league which just stays by the by, stays with the the consensus stuff. It's very strange. It's like, surely you need to try and. My point is, there has to be an incentive for people to play. Like, no wonder people are pulling out when it's just the same league, except there's no interest around it, like there would be with ESB, where it's sort of like seen as like the main, which team is the best standing. There has to be an incentive. There has to be, throw in like a fucking 20 quid, like for an entire team prize money, and all of a sudden you've got people playing it, like something like that, where you've got to invest just a tiny bit into it to actually make it work. You can't just like set it up and think people are going to flock to you. Like, you need to put some more work in. So I see, I don't know. I just see very little effort almost after the stage of actually setting up, because it must be a lot of effort to set it up and get everyone to join the league, and then after that it seems as if all the effort stops and you think you've done your job, when actually you need to start, that's when the real work starts. You need to start actually rising up the ranks of the leagues being relevant to actually be something which people want to play, basically. Okay, moving on from leagues, teams and players. I think I touched upon this earlier with the BFN chat, but toxicity and ego. Holy shit. You would be very surprised to see this if you came from a different esport, like, say esport, lol. From a different competitive scene. And you were thinking, COD's got some ego. And then you come here and you're like, wait, what? Like, there's no prize money. There's no, fucking, like, championship tournaments. There's very little viewership. Why have you got such a big ego? Like, some players just blow my mind, where it's just like, I don't even have an issue with you, but I feel like I should have, just on the basis of you actually think you're amazing. And it's just like, wow. And most of the time, it's based on something which happened, like 3 years ago in BF4. I don't even know. Like, most of the time, it's just like, oh, I did this, like, 10 years ago. It's like, do you think anyone cares? Like, bruh. It's very strange. It really is. Just how... I get egos. You have to have an ego to compete against other good players. It's just that simple. Like, you can't go into something and just have no confidence in yourself. You have to have an ego to a point of, you feel like confident in your own abilities. You think you can beat these people. But also, it just goes beyond to the point of gloating, or that's the only thing you mention is your former success in, like, the Season 1 BF1 or something. It's like, very confusing to a lot of people. And it sort of puts a lot of people off who want to get into Battlefield Competitive but think that they're not relevant unless they're winning things all the time. And it takes time to get there, man. Like, you have to grow as a team. You have to add players, get rid of toxic players. You have to grow in your own skill set and look at yourself as well, not just other people. You have to grow as a team to get to a stage where you're competing for things. And even then, people like to shit on you and say chat shit in chats for very little reason, where you'd say, you'll say GG. Me personally would, like, talk to, like, the match contact, and you would have a absolutely fine time. They'll be very nice. They'll be very useful or communicative, and it's like, okay, cool. And then, like, you'll see, like, 2 weeks later them chatting shit, and it's like, wait, what? Like, what is this? It's like random beef where it feels like people are just bored rather than there's actually an issue there. So the actual issue there is that a lot of the time, I know I'm not in. I think I'm an admin for BMF. I think I've got some sort of role within BCL or some shit. I don't know. I think I'm in, like, the welcome squad in BFN. So moving up in the world, guys. But anyway, my point is that even just from that very low sort of standing, I can see that admins who are in more powerful positions have to, basically be very vigilant and have constant moderation of people, because that must take up a lot of their time having to deal with random shit, like some things which just, like, verge on, like, blatant racism. It's just like, whoa, okay, like, is that okay, that's allowed, but something else which someone says about, a specific, I don't know, like, political event is, like, insta ban, like, for years or some shit, or like I it made me laugh when Adamant got banned for a year on ESB for ringing, and then I was like, wait, do you think that the ringing stuff's gonna stop because he got banned? Like, you realize how many people do that? It kind of made me laugh that was, like, the be all and end all, where he was probably saying, or he should have been saying, yeah, I did it, I'm sorry. But if you're going to bring me down, at least bring down the actual other people around me that do it. I'm sure there must have been a point where he thought, this is kind of bullshit because, yes, I did it, but also this guy on top teams also do it for other teams as well. Like, can we not pretend as if that doesn't... Just because one thing happens doesn't mean... Just because, you bring down the law on one guy doesn't mean the whole thing's going to collapse, but is my point. But yeah, I mean, the arguments you see in those sort of chats are very tiring and circular, and there's no actual point in there. It's just a lot of, like, chat shit and just hating people for what they are. Which a lot of the time when it comes down to cheating and stuff, I completely agree with, where it's just like people are just sitting there in chats just saying, yeah, I cheat, and what? And that kind of stuff is just like, I don't know, I try and ignore that sort of stuff. But it's just, I also think a lot of the times I see well-known players who you would expect, who've had success before, who, are leads of a team, or were in the past, and at this point are actually older than you might think. You might think they're all 14-year-olds, but actually they're around my age now. They're all about 20, about 19, something like that. You'd expect a bit more maturity in a lot of situations, and you're sort of just surprised at just how small of an issue can actually erupt into, like, a massive beef in the community. It's very strange, where it's like, I don't actually have anything against you, but I'd just rather you, like, do something which is commonsensical or mature, or something which any normal person would do, which is not be an issue when you don't need to be one. Like, you see my point there? It's just like, I don't want to do specific stuff because it's just it's gonna basically drag stuff up, and I don't want to do that. But my point is, I think well-known players need to be more mature in general, where I don't think they realize sometimes where If you do that, then it basically allows the floodgates to open for other people. And same goes for representation of a team. Like even within Tribe, for example, where it might look stupid or funny or whatever to like call someone around in the BFN fucking stat channel, but actually it just kind of has a bad look for you and your team. Whatever. It's just like, because it's a joke to you, but someone else might think actually I feel kind of shit about that or whatever. Like I don't want to be like crying over some random person's hypothetical loss of confidence there, but it's something to be said where it just doesn't really make any sense to do it. How about you just don't do it? You know, sometimes less is more. Moving on with the teams and players, instability in teams in being formed and dissolved. Yeah, I think you see this a lot where teams are basically formed and dissolved all the time. VL comes to mind. Different players, clan hopping all the time. Some good players where like I think I've had a good conversation before with Dom about this where I was genuinely asking when I first started playing. It's like, wait, so this guy's really good. Why then is he not like a hot? I don't know. The things I say are so gay. It's actually hilarious. But like, let's just say hot prospect, right? So as in, he's a valuable player. People, have high stock in him. Surely you'd want to basically put him on your team and keep him there. So someone like Vuxen, who joined halfway through the year, we thought like, and we still do, like, okay, great player. We want him on our team and we want to keep him here for as long as possible, basically. Why would you not want to just keep him there and not allow him just to move? Or why would he not realise that he's valued where he is and he would want to stay there himself as well? It's just very confusing when you see people move, go somewhere, have success, or get like second or third, and then get, I didn't win, therefore I'm losing, or I won but I didn't win on my terms. Someone else did better than me in the final game, so I'm going to leave this team and blah blah blah. It's very weird. It really is. I don't get that at all. But that's just me. I guess I'm a quite loyal person with almost to a fault where that's more personal. But anyway, you get my point. Where I think it's more valuable to stay at one team and grow and do things together with your friends rather than just clan hop. But I guess people want to kind of be pickups more than actual teammates. And I think that transition is a maturity thing as well. It's one of those things where you have to go from, do I want to be a good player or do I want to be a good player in a meaningful situation on a genuine team that enjoys playing with each other, has chemistry, and has a story to be told. Basically, you don't get that with clan hopping or pickups or whatever, so it's kind of shit for them players. I don't think they I kind of feel bad sometimes where they don't actually have that sort of situation where they can say, I know you, I'm going to stick with you, you're my like friend or whatever. I'm going to play with you and I'm going to have a good time. That kind of sucks. But either way, I think the fix for that is basically just stop fucking forming and dissolving teams out of nowhere. Also very hard for organising matches when you don't know who the fuck like plays for different teams because you've got like one guy playing for like 5 teams at once. Also, I think this kind of folds over with leagues and rule sets, but I think it's a very important point when we say there's a massive lack of consensus in like basic matters in the community, which is like very actually genuinely problematic, where it's, to me, and I think people who I've talked to about these matters, where a lot of people, at least in Tribe, don't have massive disagreements. They kind of have like a general sort of consensus that, cheating is bad, rule sets should be commonsensical, should ban overpowered things, not ban things just because you don't like them yourself. How to burn maps, or your general overview of what you want competitor to be. We have kind of like a consensus about that, but in the wider community, it's just like no one knows what other people want, it feels like, and it's like we're all coming from it from different angles, pardon me. And it's like, okay, so it's like, do you want it to be a slower, more tactical base game where you watch lanes and get kills like that, more defensively, which BF5 I think is more defensively than BF1 at least, or do you want it to be this like cracked out, no long range guns allowed game where you're basically just hitting B flag like a mindless retard and just getting kills? I kind of want somewhere in between where it's a bit fast paced, but ultimately you can't actually force a game style on a game which doesn't allow it. This game, like I said, is more defensive based. How about we just communicate with this kind of stuff? Most of the time you just see random people saying, oh, we want this or we want that, or actually MNK isn't cheating, and actually even Cronus isn't cheating, it'd be better if everyone had anti-recall so it'd be even, or some shit. It's like mind-blowing stuff like that to me, where it's like, okay, we can't even get past the first hurdle of consensus, which is how you form league stuff. So maybe I guess the league would say to me, well, actually, the player base doesn't know what it wants, and therefore we don't know what it wants. So don't blame us, blame the player base, which is a fair point. It's that kind of things like things like there's no consensus on how we score maps. all matches. Is it completely tickets? Is it on rounds, up to 6, for example, right now? Is it going to be like, 4-2 is a win? Or is it going to be maps within that thing? So, it's out of 3, who won Arras, who won Hamada, who won Rotterdam? You've got all these different ways of scoring the same thing. And it changes per game sometimes, where I remember during mid-season we were playing one which was based on rounds, one which was based on maps, one which was based on tickets, and it was very confusing for everyone. Everyone was thinking, oh yeah, everyone gets hyped for winning 1-0, but then it's like, oh no, but we score on maps, or we score on tickets, so actually this means fuck all. Things like that where it's actually winning is devalued. Yeah, personally, I like maps. I liked maps because at the time you could do different spawns, but now we can't do different spawns. I like rounds, personally, where you still have to give the value of winning a round. So if you play from Arras to Narvik, then only when it gets to 3-3 does tickets come into account. So I like that system personally right now. But I understood at the time that maps was a system where you've got the fair spawn thing where you flip. That made sense. The pure tickets thing sounds good, but also it doesn't take into account for things like forfeiting, all that kind of stuff. So instead of if a team forfeits, the team that won gets 160 tickets, when you could have a really well played close game against another team, and you've showed your skill, but actually you've only got 80 tickets, when that team's got twice as much just because they got a forfeit. That ticket system's flawed in that kind of way, and it kind of just means that you basically have to beat up on the small teams, the less skilled team, which kind of sucks because you kind of feel bad. It's like you're 6 maps in and you're still trying to get 160 tickets, max tickets against this team, which is already being beaten at 5-0. Like, it kind of sucks for them as well. So I quite like rounds. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But that's what I mean when I say like a consensus. Like, we need to try and the player base and then the leagues, probably in that order, needs to figure out what do we want here, basically. And then only then do you get people coming in and thinking, actually, there's some sort of organisation consistency here where this is pubs and this is competitive, instead of just like, this is pubs and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different ways of playing competitive. Which is what it is currently, which is, I think, is the confusing issue for a lot of people. I don't want to talk about cheating. I've done that enough. I didn't talk about DDoSing though, but I can't be asked, to be honest, because everyone knows. This is more of a theoretical point, actually. I think this is me being kind of gay, but I thought about this in. Again, I usually compare it to COD because that's the sort of thing I kind of know very well, because I've been watching it since like Black Ops fucking 1, I think, when it wasn't even a thing, and you still had like what was it 11? No, it wasn't 11. I can't remember the red Black Ops 1 team. Anyway, yeah, you can tell I know loads about that, can't you? Anyway, my point is the way I got into that was basically watching Scump, and then I thought, okay, so who would do that for Battlefield 5? Who's your role model? Who's your role model in BF5 comp if you're a player? Who do you look up to? I would say, for me, it's Dom on my team, because like that's how it's always been. That's just how it's been for the start for me. But like, I assume a lot of players are thinking, I don't have a role model, I just do it myself. I don't need one. That works for some people, and then for the vast majority of people, even just some sort of like minor role model where you think, I want to get to that point, is actually a really good motivator and a really good thing for a community, where you've got like a face of a community almost. Again, like I said, more theoretical, but it's like, who are the faces of Battlefield Competitive? But anyway, yeah, just to wrap that up. Hope you enjoyed the video overall. It could have been better. It could have been more seamless. And I know there was some audio hiccups as well. I think I truncated the silence a little bit too hard in Audacity, which is the software I use for audio. But anyway, hope you enjoyed, guys. Let me know what you want to see in the 3rd episode. It's completely up to you guys. If no one recommends anything, then I'll just do it myself, which is absolutely fine. But if you wanted to steer the channel in a certain direction, if there's a topic you want me to talk about, moan about, maybe speculate about, maybe things like, I guess you could, maybe do my like actual life stuff, maybe, I don't know, maybe that'd be a bit too forward, but anyway, that's a suggestion. But yeah, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, or if you just enjoyed the video in general, then I would really appreciate a like and comment and subscribe. Thank you for listening, guys. Hope you have a good time, and I'll see you in the next one.